You know, this is my first day back after a couple of months, and I really feel that I've been away like I don't know where the clicker is. At the 8 o'clock service, I was sitting down and getting immersed in the service, and when we got up to greet, I remembered that we could have coffee. I forgot about getting coffee. So be patient with me. There are things that, oh look, the clicker reappeared. Okay. I'm home. And what's really wonderful is it does truly feel like a coming home. And that's such a treasure. That's such a treasure. I've missed each and every one of you. I've missed the love and the energy of this place, of this community, although I carried it in my heart, so it's all good. I discovered wonderful things. Some of them I rediscovered from many, many years ago, like what it feels like to be rested. It's an amazing feeling. It is the most amazing. I literally had forgotten. Probably since before my son was born. I mean, I was thinking how far back. So I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am unwilling to lose that experience again. So help me, remind me. And there were many, many wonderful things. One of the precious gifts that I got was right after I decided definitely to take this 2-month sabbatical. Within a couple days, I was invited to Hawaii. A friend had a timeshare. And then I was invited to speak at Unity of Kona, which meant free lodging and a tax write-off, right? And Hawaii was fabulous. I had gone the year before, and the year before there was a hurricane, so we sat hunkered down in the hotel room. This time I actually got to see the island, and that was great. While I was gone, I also attended 2 retreats. One was 12 days, and the other was a week. The one that was a week was at Asilomar, and many of you have been to Asilomar. It is a place where there have been many unity retreats. It's a place where teachers like Wayne Dyer and Ernest Holmes would come regularly. There is a sense of holy ground there for many, many reasons. For me personally, walks on the beach are the best ways to physically feel immersed in God. So I walked this beach every day when I was there. I mean, I would average 7-8 miles of walking a day. And it was wonderful. And the Asilomar retreat was sponsored by Religious Science, which is a very close organization to Unity. There were wonderful workshops, some inspirational talks, and the walks on the beach that I so treasure. At Asilomar, my puppy was welcome, so she came and she was on retreat too. She is a Tibetan terrier. Her name is Sachi. Sachi means playful wisdom. She's got playful down pat. We're working on wisdom, both of us, she and I both. But her breed was bred to be companion to the Tibetan monks. So during the retreat, I was waiting for her to assume a meditation pose at any moment. We're not there yet, but so that she was there, and that was wonderful. The other retreat was based in Buddhist teachings, and the name of the retreat center is Dhamma Kunja, which means the edge of the jungle. The Buddhist teacher that founded these retreat centers would go visit each new center as they opened up. And when he went to southern Washington State, where this is located, there are these huge forests, like here in California, tall evergreen trees and just thick, lush forests. And he goes, oh my gosh, you're at the edge of the jungle. And they try to tell him jungles and forests are a little different, but it was all the same. So he named the retreat center Dhamma Kunja, which means center at the edge of the jungle. So I was at the edge of the jungle. The retreat center was set up that you arrived on a Wednesday, and at 8 o'clock Wednesday evening, during the day everything felt pretty normal. And 8 o'clock in the evening you went to your first meditation in the temple. And those formal meditations where you were required to attend were very, very strict. And so some of the meditations were a little looser and gentler, and some were very strict. The meditations are called sits. So the first sit was at 8 o'clock. And during the formal sits, you are not to move. You are not to make noise. You're not supposed to shift positions. And usually the formal shifts last between an hour to 2 hours, right? They wake you, but you have meditation periods throughout the rest of the day where you're free to meditate in your room or in the temple. And if you need to get up, go to the restroom, it's a little gentler. They wake you up at 4:30 for the first meditation, and you meditate until 6 or 6:30, I'm forgetting now, and then you have breakfast, and then the first formal strict sit is at 8 o'clock, and on it goes throughout the whole day. There were many things I learned during that time. One was, as a child, I had dreamed of being a Carmelite nun, which is a woman, a nun, who spends her entire life in silent meditation. And a strange dream for a 7, 8-year-old girl, right? But it was powerful in me, so I thought, well, maybe it's a reincarnation thing, and I was a monk or a nun in a previous life. But it was really powerful. I learned at this retreat that I made a horrible monk or nun. During those strict sits, if anybody shifted and made noise, it was me. If anybody started coughing and disrupting things, it was me. If anybody sat there for an hour with thoughts distracted and doing monkey mind, it was me. So I wasn't meant to be that for my whole life. I guess it's better that I'm here. But the other side of that is it is really, really powerful to sit in silence for that long. The world feels different. The world looks different. My body felt different. Who I am felt different. It was the most amazing experience overall. Behind those are the picture there is of the residence halls for women. Behind that residence hall were these trees. My room was in the back of the building, and so right behind my room were these particular trees. And there was a chair behind my room. And I would sit there and meditate. One of the things that happens is when you sit in silence for that long and follow the instructions of paying attention first to your breath and then the sensations in your body. For 10 days, that is all we did. The first 3 days were just following the breath. And then 7 days of following the sensations in your body. after a few days of noticing the sensations, what happened to me, and from what I read and from what the teacher said, is it's a fairly common experience. The body no longer is solid. It feels like energy. It feels like vibrating, pulsating energy. So when I'm in my body, this is where I am. And I have personal space. And when my personal space gets invaded, I don't like it. Like, I want to elbow people away. I feel it the most powerfully on an airplane these days. Everyone gets in my personal space, and I've sat there wanting to elbow the person next to, and I haven't. But there's this sense of this is where I begin, and this is where I end, and this is my space. In those experiences of my body as energy, there is no such thing, because energy is not defined by skin or boundaries. Energy just flows and fills the universe, really. And I would sit by those trees and I would feel my energy continuous with the energy of the trees. So when one of our instructions was to scan our body, starting from the top of the head to the toes and then go back up. And I caught myself, and I didn't do this deliberately. I just noticed after I had been doing this a while that I didn't stop at the top of my head. I stopped at the top of the trees. And I didn't stop where my feet were. I stopped at the bottom of the roots. And I could feel that energy. And the energy that was me was not different from the energy that was the trees. It was the same energy. It's just in this solidified form. It's just in this physical world that we see the solid stuff. And the really bizarre thing is that for most of history, most people have assumed that this stuff here is what's really real, right? And all these spiritual things we talk about and the energy of life is the woo-woo stuff, right? That only the weirdos, like unity people, buy into. Or maybe super devout Catholics that believe in saints and ghosts and whatnot. But physics, the really deep scientists that talk a language that's impossible to understand, all know that this energy that we are, this life force that we are, is the true basis of reality. What they tell us is that we flicker in and out of our form. The form, this physical stuff, these atoms, these electrons, they flicker in and out of physical being. So it's just very briefly and related to all of time that this physical stuff exists. And then the other thing that we know is that each atom, because each molecule, each tissue that we are, is made up of atoms, and if we could see each atom, the center of the atom would, the nucleus would be like a speck in the middle of a football field. And that the electrons that form a cloud around this nucleus would be like the stands around the football field. So most of it is not material anyway. Most of it is space. And the little bit that is material flickers in and out of being. How on earth did this physical stuff get to call or get to be called the primary stuff of the universe? It's not. And when we can get into this sense of the life energy that we are, then things like the life of God is flowing through me takes on such a powerful, powerful meaning. And it feels absolutely normal to scan my body by beginning at the top of the trees, going through this physical being down to the bottom of the roots, right? So being in this strict silence for so long changes the world, changes who I am, changes, at least for a little while, how I see things, how I know things. And there are different things in life that do that for us. When we face a major challenge, you know, when someone close to us makes their transition, or when we lose a job or change careers or move cross country, or land in the Virgin Islands in your 20s not knowing what you're doing. You know, there are many things that take us into this awakening experience, and there's this potential to awaken to our oneness, whether it's through meditation, through silence, through something or anything that jolts us out of our habit of seeing the world just in one way. So this, for me, was part of this theme of awakening to our oneness, which is what we've been talking about all year. And it's still 2019, I checked. And today I wanted to talk about this experience of standing at the door. Has everyone seen that door up in the clouds? You know, we talk about the door of my heart, the door of my consciousness. There is no door, just like there's no door up in the clouds, but we understand what that means because we buy into that boundary. You know, my heart can close up and create a boundary, and then there's a door so I can open it up again. And my consciousness, even though consciousness is not bound by physical form, my consciousness needs a door to open to allow new ways of thinking and seeing. And poets have written about it. It's in our Bible. It's an idea that teaches us essentially that there is no door, that there is a oneness. Eknath Easwaran, a wonderful spiritual teacher, his Blue Mountain Retreat Center is not far from here. I was listening to an audiobook, and he wasn't speaking, but someone was reading his words. And in that audiobook, Eknath Easwaran said, when we are thrown into these challenging situations or different situations, that we end up asking ourselves, who am I? What am I doing here? What are you doing here? I mean, seriously, what are you doing here? You know? Sometimes the answer is easy, sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we frame the question in terms of what am I here to do? Or what is it that's calling me? Who's knocking at the door, inviting me to come do something or be someone? And we struggle with these questions sometimes. Sometimes we don't know how to easily answer them, but they're good questions. Marianne Williamson, who is currently one of the people running to be a Democratic candidate, right, for presidency, she's a teacher of the Course in Miracles, and that's where I first heard of her. And again, I was listening to a recorded talk, and she said she never liked these kind of questions, and she didn't want to know what she was being called to do because she was scared that whatever this thing called God was going to call her to an underdeveloped or undeveloped nation somewhere far off in Asia or Africa or in the Arctic tundra, and what would she do then if she knew God was calling her to go one of these places? And then she realized that that which she called God, that which she perceived as calling her, was really the deepest and truest part of her. And if that part of her, the self with a capital S, was to call her, it would call her to go to Manhattan. And it would be okay, because that was aligned with who she was. When we really look at these questions and allow the answers to come up, what comes up is our deepest truth. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but that's a whole separate talk. But what comes up is our deepest truth. Rumi wrote about this. He said, I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons. And that's how it is when we're hit with these challenges. We want to know why. Why did this have to happen? Why is this happening? Why me? And it feels like an insanity because the world as we know it is being ripped apart. But Rumi went on to say, knocking on a door, because we try to knock on those doors to get those answers. He says, knocking on a door, it opens. And I've been knocking from the inside. When we go through these, we learn over and over again that perceived separation, that the boundary, that the door we imagine separating us doesn't exist. We are both on the inside and the outside of the door. We are being called, and we are the ones calling. In the Upanishads, again, Eknath Eswaran has a beautiful translation of the Upanishads. They are ancient Eastern scriptures. In the Upanishads, it says, you are what your deep driving desire is. So what you are here to be is aligned with your deep driving desire, and that is the truth of who you are, because the deep driving desire is an expression of you. That's why Marianne Williamson would go to Manhattan, not Southeast Asia. And so in our own scriptures, in Revelations chapter 3, verse 20, it says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him. So this is the Christ speaking. I stand at the door and knock. The Christ within us is knocking at the door of our consciousness, knocking at the supposed door of our hearts. And if we hear the voice of the Christ and we open ourselves to that presence, we are filled with that Christ presence. There's another wonderful spiritual teacher, Joel Goldsmith. How many people have heard of him? If you haven't, our library has many books by him. Check him out. He stretches my mind when I read him. He opens my heart. Sometimes I get into this, I know this when I read a spiritual book. I don't ever do that with Joel Goldsmith. He always goes, oh, okay. So he writes about that quote from Revelations, and he says, let me move this. I have more to read than fit on the screen. Joel Goldsmith says, I stand at the door and knock. Who is this I standing at the door? And at what door is this I standing? At what door but the door of your consciousness? I stand at the door of your consciousness and knock, but you must open the door and admit me. For I am the bread of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. The I that is standing at the door of your consciousness and knocking is the I that has come that you might have life more abundant. So this imaginary door that we create, if we allow the Christ that is knocking at that door, if we open to that, then the resurrection and the life is ours. Life more abundant is ours. Because if we live in the consciousness of oneness with the Christ, our life overflows with abundance beyond imagination. If we open to that Christ presence and know our oneness, we become an expression of the perfect life that is God. We express the infinite wisdom that is God. We experience the power of God moving through us. So we either knock at the door to find those answers, or we listen to the Christ knocking at that same door. And it's all one and the same. We are the Christ that is knocking, wanting to be let in, wanting to make our lives more abundant, more full. And we are the same when we are in that experience of knocking and looking for answers, looking for explanations. It's just a different moment of experience. It is the same I. It's the same I. When I sat in meditation at Dhammakunja, it was the same I that felt oneness with the trees, that felt irritated by how my chair was uncomfortable and focusing on that for an hour. It's the same I. We go through different moments. And we keep coming back to the truth. We keep knocking at the door to be let into that deeper consciousness. And we keep opening the door to that consciousness, that Christ consciousness, and letting it in. Namaste.